What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. We skipped a week here, Tim, but we're back. We are back.
We did, and we apologize to everybody for being absent. We have, like all of you, we've been dealing with the lunacy that is going on in our world, the constant up and down. And so we did miss a week, but we are back. And the one thing you will notice right off the bat is that it is audio only, and it is going to be that way for the next couple of weeks while we kind of navigate some of the madness that's been going on. We've been doing our best for quite a while to keep things video, keep episodes going up as normal. But it got a little bit heavy, so we're having to rope back a touch just so we can keep some of our main content going as scheduled, as well as Arris has a baby on the way.
That is true. So early September is the due date. So we're under 2 months here?
That's right.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to the deadline, the launch date, if you will. So
we're back to OG podcasting, audio only. This is the roots. The bare bones of it all.
That's right. Going old school podcast for the next couple of weeks. But we want to make sure you guys are at least getting the content in one way or another. So here we are, audio only for the next couple of weeks, but then video will be back probably sometime in early to mid-August.
I always did want to be like a radio jockey,
Yeah.
So this is my dream being coming to life, if you will.
Coming in at number 8.
But we have a lot. There's been some, obviously the world is still kind of crazy town, but there's a lot of cool comic book news that's been happening over the last several weeks.
Yeah, it has been, the one thing that's stands out the most is DC, man, has just got a freaking crap ton going on. It has been a DC storm.
Right, like they have a fire under their feet for sure.
Doubt.
It is all kinds of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know why it seems like Marvel has been slow to get back to the punch. I know we've talked about that more recently here, but it seems like they've been slow to get anything really ramped up. And even their main event that's going on over the summer, and we'll get into this here in just a little bit, Empire has seemingly had some serious issues, and they've actually had to rope back on a lot of their tie-ins and things like that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be, their biggest event, closing out the year, and they canceled like around, I think, at least half or more than half of their titles that tied into it, if I remember correctly, which is, well, we'll talk about that later, like we said. But it is interesting to see, though, like freaking DC running with it, right? And kind of taking advantage of it in the sense. They're taking advantage of Marvel/Disney kind of roping back because they're like on a bi-weekly comic basis right now because Marvel's only giving us new books every other week as of now, where DC is pumping out every single week continuously as they're trying to get back to full steam ahead. So it's kind of crazy. See, I feel like they're seizing the moment, if you will. They're taking like this down note and trying to make it a positive. We're like, well, maybe we could make our way to the top by taking advantage.
Yeah, and I guess the interesting thing for me is I wonder if that was intentional. Like that was actually something they sat down and discussed in that way, or if this was just really like good timing for them and coincidental in the sense that they already had all of this on the docket and they're just like, we're just going to keep going, and everybody else was maybe a little bit more taken off guard or unprepared for this. The one thing I will say is, and that does show, what you're saying, where they took advantage of this opportunity in a way, is how they handled the entire situation with Diamond, and them cutting off the distribution and them, being the ones that actually took the step to separate and to go their own way and to create a new distribution system for themselves and all of that. They moved pretty strongly on that front. And I think that does indicate that they were just like, hey, this is an opportunity for us to really step out front. And they've definitely been leading the way.
And it's crazy because it's like on all fronts too, right? Not just comic books, but even like TV and film, right? I mean, because they just, within the last 2 months here, Stargirl's in full swing. It's already halfway with the season. They just released Doom Patrol season 2 about a week or so ago. And they're keep pumping content out. The Harley Quinn animated series just wrapped up for the second season on their app, and that's on the TV front. But then we've been getting tons of movie news, and now they're setting up the DC fandom event for August, where we're set to get 2 new movie announcements. Which one of the big rumors is a Batman Beyond movie. It's rumored that that's in the works, so they'll officially announce that, which would make sense with the other rumor going around that Michael Keaton is in talks to sign to be part of the DC extended
Yes,
universe.
man.
So that would make all the sense in the world if you introduce him into Flashpoint, and then going forward, you know, he's in Batman Beyond because he's an older, you know, Bruce Wayne. So I mean, all the pieces are kind of starting to fall together for them, which is pretty crazy. And even the map that they've showed for the DC fandom event, it is a multiverse, right? So it's like everything kind of connects. They have like the comic zone, and they have one called like the kids zone or whatnot, the cinematic universe. So it's really interesting. And it's also interesting that they kind of seem like they pulled out of San Diego Comic-Con, because San Diego Comic-Con is doing a virtual event, right? But they decided to like, no, we're kind of going to do our own, or not kind of, we are doing our own virtual Comic-Con where it's just going to be all things DC. Kind of like they took a note from like D23 and they're doing it for DC, right? So it's crazy to see all the stuff that's going on with them this year.
Absolutely. And I think the fandom event is probably one of the most interesting things that they're doing. I do kind of feel like, and I know, you know, it's not just DC. Marvel kind of initiated this a little bit, but I do feel like everybody's kind of starting to break off and wanting to do their own thing in terms of like Comic-Con. Now, the sad thing is that will, in the long run, if this continues, we might see this dramatically affect what Comic-Cons look like, especially the big ones.
For sure.
Like San Diego Comic-Con. You know, we're so used to it being the hub for all of these huge, you know, announcements and events, and where all of these big, releases and reveals come out. And, you know, we may be looking at, if we haven't already seen, the end of that kind of norm, to where we move in a direction where, you know, each individual franchise, and, you know, not surprisingly, the streaming wars is going to have a lot to do with this, but where they all want to be in full control and have a central focus on their individual franchises. And like I said, Marvel, they were the first ones to really kind of initiate this by, kind of picking and choosing when they were going to participate in Comic-Con, right?
Oh, yeah,
like
San Diego,
they would be there and then they wouldn't be there. And DC, you know, would really try and take advantage of the years that Marvel wasn't there. But I think there may be a little bit of a sense that they got tired of looking like they were second fiddle to Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, well, if Marvel's not here, then we'll really be able to do something big and we'll get a lot more attention. I think they want to kind of isolate and tear down that narrative and that viewpoint to where it's like, no, we have our own huge epic franchise that we're building out. So we're going to have a fan event that is centric to DC, where we can highlight and we can show all of the cool stuff that we're doing in one place. And if that trend continues, we might just very well see a very different version of Comic-Cons here over the next few years.
I mean, yeah, that to that point, that would make a lot of sense, just because like the MCU, Marvel Studios, like ruled Hall H, right? Like they literally were the headlining act, in the sense where they would close out the night. So it's like you're waiting for that all the time, and that says a lot because all the major studios were there: Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, Paramount, Universal. But it's Comic-Con, and the biggest thing in movies has been the Marvel Cinematic. I mean, biggest thing in comic book movies rather has been the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that says a whole lot. But like you said, everyone's kind of wanting their own thing. Like with the streaming wars, like, you got Peacock now, HBO Max has got their thing, Disney Plus, the DC Universe app. So everyone wants their own streaming platform, which I think is cool. But I also feel like in the long term, it's going to be tiring on us, the consumers and fans. Yeah. Because like, it's nice to go to like a Netflix or a Hulu where there's a little bit of everything, right? You got some Marvel movies, you got some DC movies, you got some ABC shows, some Stars. But like, inevitably, it's at this rate, it seems like, if you want to watch a Warner Brothers movie, you have to have the Warner Brothers app. If you want to watch a Disney's movie, you have to watch a Disney movie. Because once these contracts expire, once all the contracts Disney has set in place with Netflix or any other streaming services expire, they're not going to renew. They're just going to throw it up on theirs because they have their own platform. Why would you use someone else's? And if, everyone goes that route, it's cool, but it just means we're, all those $10-15 a month is gonna add up.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder if someone's gonna come along where they'll just be like, well, you pay $20 a month and you get Disney Plus, HBO Max, and this. You know what I mean? So maybe we need to develop that. Maybe we shouldn't be saying this to everyone. Maybe we need to copyright it. It's the next multi-million-dollar idea.
Well, I think that's like, I don't know that we're going to be seeing that anytime soon because everybody wants to isolate their revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get out of the market of having to split their revenue with an additional platform. That's what all this is about. I think that the bigger or I shouldn't say the interesting part, but I should say the biggest concern for me with the streaming platforms, and it's like a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword because you're going to get, as a result, we're gonna get a lot of really cool content that we never would have gotten otherwise, right?
For sure.
As a result of these streaming wars, we know that, we've talked about that. But the other side of that coin is the content overload, right? Mm-hmm. Where there's going to be so much content coming at us so fast, and it is going to get, I think, to an overload point. And because we are already seeing a little bit of fatigue with the superhero genres, right? Mm-hmm. They were pumping out so many things, and while it's still fun and everybody still wants to see it, they're pumping out so many things so fast, and not all of it is coherent. Not all of it has a sense of continuity to it or a sense of purpose to it. A lot of it not even aligning with the heart and soul of the characters themselves. So you're getting a lot of displeasure from the fan base. So there's already a little bit of fatigue setting in there to where you had a lot of people speculating, when is this bubble going to pop, right? So it really makes me wonder if you just start ramping this up and we really just, kick this into a massive overload. Yes, we're going to get all the, some really cool stuff out of it. But at what point do you start kind of getting to that saturation, that overload point, where people start tuning out a little bit? You know what I mean? Where your brain can only take so much at any given point. So it starts cutting things off and isolating. So where I think it'll be kind of like movies, where you'll have the big deal, films or series that everybody's looking forward to. And, it's like something crazy, kind of like the Snyder Cut sort of thing, where it's like an event that everybody's looking to come together and watch as a community. And then you're going to have all this other stuff, and it's going to be, I think, a little bit of pick and choose, where you're going to have some really, potentially even some really good pieces of content, maybe even drop off and not do so well and not get a fair shake because people are just overwhelmed by all of it.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty crazy. I know me, even just now there's so many things I want to watch and read and do that it's hard now. So it's only gonna get harder. People ask all the time, are you watching this comic book show? Are you watching this or reading this? Are you watching this on the DC Universe app? I'm like, not yet, but it's been out for 2 months. I'm like, that's because there's so much stuff. It's impossible to consume all this content, especially when you have a day job, you have a family, you have kids. So unless you're just on your couch doing nothing but reading and watching things all day long, you have to pick and choose at this point.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting. But going back to DC and the comic world, their events are kind of crazy right now. They have 3 massive events kind of ending out the year, and they're all Batman centric, which isn't shocking at all. But we got DC Metal, which is Death Metal rather, DC's Death Metal, which is a sequel to Metal, in full swing. Then we got the Joker War, which is going to be James Tynion's big Batman arc, where the designer and everything's been leading to. And then we also have the 3 Jokers by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok. So we have these, and that one has been anticipated for 2-3 years now. That was supposed to come out so long ago, much like Doomsday Clock. It's been delayed for X, Y, and Z reasons. So it's going to be released in 3 prestige format issues under the Black Label brand for DC. So they're going to be 40 to 50 page issues, 3 of them, I guess, for 3 Jokers. And I don't know, we got a lot of good stuff. Death Metal I'm enjoying so far. James Tynion, I think, has been doing a fantastic job on Batman. I think he's really, pleasing us Batman fans after the very polarizing run Tom King had. And then, Jeff Johns, he's top 3 favorite writers for me. The Doomsday Clock, especially that finale issue, I've said it all the time, is one of my favorite single issues in the last decade. And now he's, exploring the Joker mythos, saying there's been 3 Jokers all along. So what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
And he's doing it with one of my favorite artists, Jason Fabok, who's bringing that Brian Bolin killing joke like element and artists or artistry to this book. So I am very happy with just those 3 books alone for the rest of the year. And that's not even, talking about all the other stuff. I can get into Venom and Thor and all the stuff that Donny Cates has been doing, but this is just DC.
Right.
So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think I would go back to what you said right from the beginning. I think, again, DC is doing a lot of stuff, and it's really good stuff. My only thing is like, you have, again, Death Metal, Joker War, and 3 Jokers, like landing Joker War and Death Metal at the same time. And then you have the 3 Jokers coming out, before Death Metal even finishes out.
Right.
So you have all of this stuff, and it's so Joker, Batman centric, really Joker heavy, because even Death Metal is around the Batman Who Laughs, right?
For sure.
So it's really, really Joker heavy. So, that's my only thing, is it does feel like it's just a little bit of Joker overload, because they kind of they bum rushed it all at one time. So I kind of wish that wasn't the case, and it was a little bit more diverse in its
what if it's all on purpose though?
It's possible.
3 Jokers.
But,
because 3 Jokers there's a lot of theories going around, because after this, 3 Jokers is last. So literally there's 3 stories that are involving it right now. So you have the Joker War, you have the Batman Who Laughs, who's, a Jokerized Batman, Bruce Wayne essentially, and then maybe the 3 Joker story ties it all together. I don't know. There's lots of theories, I don't know, but what if all the Jokerness craziness has been going on has clearly been on purpose, leading to the 3 Joker story?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I would be more apt to believe that if we weren't seeing Snyder's storylines being so dismissive of what Jeff Johns did with Doomsday Clock.
Well, I'm curious to see how much, because 3 Jokers and Doomsday Clock, Johns was working on those at the same time, right?
Right.
So I'm very curious to see how that, or if it does, tie into Doomsday Clock at all. Because remember, we found out there was 3 Jokers in Jeff Johns' Justice League run towards the end of the Darkseid War, I believe. That's where, like, when Batman was on the Mobius chair,
right,
he basically found out, he's like, there's 3 Jokers. And then that led into the DC Rebirth one-shot, where we see at the beginning of that, Batman, looking, at pictures on the Bat computer or whatever with the 3 Jokers, and that's when, like, Wally West comes in and stuff like that. So, like, this is all Jeff Johns. Like, this has been tied into, his Justice League run, his Rebirth one-shot. Then obviously he did Doomsday Clock, and now he's doing this. So I'm very curious to see, with DC and Snyder kind of changing directions a little bit.
Right.
Has his story changed? Was it vague enough where it doesn't matter and it could still fit? Because out of all this stuff going on, I'm very curious to see what Death Metal does. I enjoyed the first issue a lot. Very curious to see what the new direction for DC is. Joker War, I'm very excited for, because it's Batman and James Tynion's been doing a great job. But more so than all that, the 3 Jokers, I want to know what, like, is that, like, was there actually 3 Jokers? Is there some kind of, like, trick to it or something? You know what I mean? Like, and how does that play in DC going forward with all these changes? Because when he was writing it, it's not the same DC when he came up with this idea than the DC we now have, like, 4-ish years later. So I'm very curious.
And he's not even at the helm anymore. So he's not steering the comic book ship in terms of where it's going in the future anymore.
Yeah, he was the chief creative officer when all this was, when he came up with all these ideas.
Right. Which is, in my opinion, it made more sense when you saw in, the Death Metal storyline, and even in the Justice League books, where you see them being sort of dismissive and flippantly referencing the events of Doomsday Clock. To where it's almost like, yeah, they did this happened, but it didn't work, and so this happened, and I don't want to get into spoilers because we're not doing spoilery, but there was moments where it was very dismissive about it, and if they're going to do that, it doesn't make a ton of sense story wise to write that in issue 1 of Death Metal. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like so it's possible, but I felt like that was their way of saying, yes, this happened, acknowledging it, but it's not part of where DC's going. That very much felt like what it was for me, and it may prove to be otherwise. You know, we don't know. We're gonna have to see how this all plays out. But just based on what we've seen and the fact that Jeff Johns is no longer a part of where DC Comics is going in terms of, you know, actual story. Having said that, he's heading up. He's one of the big dogs over on the DC film side and the DC cinematic side. So, you know, there has to be, the two have to work hand in hand to some extent, but to what extent, we don't know. They're not saying. You know, does it matter where the comic books go in relation to, you know, the DCEU or, you know, the film and television side? You know, we don't really know that. They're not being very clear or open about that. So, but my guess is what he did in Doomsday Clock is not going to play that. This is just my personal guess. All right, that it's not going to play a huge role going forward, and Three Jokers is going to end up being almost like a one-off.
I mean, I'm curious. I feel like it would have to tie in somehow. I mean, because again, you can't say because this isn't like an Elseworld book, right? So they're saying this is like within the Batman continuity, unless they change it. So last of my knowledge, this Three Jokers book is in main Batman continuity, unless, you know, right. I missed the headline where that changed. But that would mean that everything that happens with the Three Jokers is going to have to, you know, work with the greater DC universe, because that means it's going to have to play with the main Batman book, which James Tynion is on, the Justice League book, you know, Death Metal, all this. So that's what I'm saying, especially with, you know, DC being so Batman-centric the last, you know, 2 years or so, especially with these Joker stories and the Batman and Laugh being such a big hit. I want to know how this is all going, because it has to tie in, right? Unless it's you know, they say, oh, this is an Elseworld story, which I don't think it is. Again, unless that's changed, it has to tie in. But how? And also, where did the Three Jokers come from? Like, was it like a crisis or something that made all of them and they split? Like, what is the explanation? All I know is, in Jeff Johns I trust, because he's a big continuity junkie like myself. He is very big in going back into DC lore and trying to make things make sense, just like he did with the Doomsday Clock and, you know, involving the JSA and all that stuff. So I do have faith that he will make this work. I'm just curious to see if they made him change it, since he's not at the forefront anymore. He's not the chief creative officer, and, you know, who could make those decisions. So very, very, very curious.
Right. Well, I mean, let's speculate that out for a second here, a little bit further. You know, if we were to look at the Three Jokers and try and assume who the Three Jokers might be, just in terms of Batman continuity, and to where could he work that in, right? So we know we have the Joker from Tynion's run. Then we also have the Batman Who Laughs and the Batman that's playing out in Snyder's verse, if you want to call it that. And then you have the Joker from Jeff Johns and whatever he's doing. But the one thing I would say, if you look at this like as a big picture in terms of continuity, does he have to work what he's doing with the Three Jokers into the exact same timeline as what Snyder is doing and the other DC writers are doing with, say, Death Metal and the Joker War and all of these sorts of things? My answer would be no. He could be doing this retro, like he could be going retro with it. He could be looking at this from the timeline of the New 52, let's say, and what happened inside of his own Doomsday Clock storyline with all the different multiverses. And he could just tell a Joker story within the timelines of when Dr. Manhattan was manipulating and jacking with the timelines and the universes. And he could just tell a story within those contexts and in those timelines, as opposed to being in the aftermath or in the future where we are now in the Snyderverse, if you want to call it that, version or timeline of the DC universe, where it's after everything that Dr. Manhattan did. They even reference it again in the Death Metal issue 1. So for me, that seems like much more possible than how do you tie. So, but like for me, that's my opinion. Where do you think the Three Jokers could come from?
I think he's going from the eras of incarnations of Joker. So I think we're going to get like, I mean, even going by like the promo art and stuff like that, it seems like we're going to get like that Neal Adams Joker, right? So that Joker, the Joker that kind of made the lunatic psychopath killer clown we know today, where, you know, it was Neal Adams and Dennis O'Neil, and then probably the New 52 Joker, because that was like another you know, interpretation of the Joker and another, you know, crisis or continuity shift. And then probably your classic Joker, but there we are getting a lot of stuff that's homages to the Killing Joke. So I feel like maybe like a Killing Joke Joker, a New 52 Joker, and then maybe your classic like Neal Adams, Dennis O'Neil Joker. That would be my guess. I think he's gonna play with eras like that because it's like every era had their own version or take on the Joker that lasted for like a decade or more, or what have you. So I think he might play with it that way, especially with the New 52 Joker and all the stuff that Snyder did with, you know, the Batman and the Joker dying. But wait, no, there's this secret chemical or elixir that I forget the name of it that brings them back to life, that, you know, was down in the Batcave and stuff, and it healed them and saved them. So like I think he's gonna play with that. That's my take on it, especially again going with the promo art. If anyone follows Jason Fabok on Twitter or Instagram, he's been posting a lot of teasers and cover images and variant covers that are gonna be coming out for this series, and a lot of them play with that classic Joker theme. Like you have Pillhead Joker, or Red Hood rather Joker, where he's wearing that red pillhead visor. Then you have a Laughing Fish Joker, where he's holding the laughing fish, and then you have like the classic almost Brian Bolin Killing Joke Joker. So I think they're gonna go with eras that way, you know, and kind of explain it that way. I just don't know where the split would be. Like maybe going back to what you were saying, maybe, you know, a Crisis or Dr. Manhattan or, you know, something of that sort is what made everything split. But it'll be funny. It'll be interesting to see how it's explained, because you would have to do it retroactively, right? Because you would have to say, okay, so the Neal Adams Joker was this, and then this happened where we had a third Joker. So like, are they all, what I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to say, like with that split, they all split, but does that mean they all exist at the same time? So Bruce was actually fighting different Jokers. He just didn't know it. And did each Joker, if they all exist at the same time, did each Joker know of the other two Jokers? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that is crazy too. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you can go with it, and like obviously it's fiction, so you can really do whatever you want. But again, but Jeff Johns is really smart to like, it's like, yeah, it's fiction, but I do want to give like, you know, legit reasoning to people who've been, you know, reading these characters for years and years, and if not decades. So I you know, I don't know. With this kind of stuff, I try not to guess too much, because I'm very much like a little kid. I like to be surprised. Sure. But I think it's going to be something with the Joker through the eras. Like he's going to pick the three most iconic versions of the Joker, and kind of play with that somehow. And
even from the images that we've seen, that's very much what it looks like. And that's why I say, like, it makes more sense to me, because everything you just described in terms of that being the case, that's very much in line with what I'm thinking, why I think he's going to go more retroactive with it, and look into the past, the timelines prior to what's happening now with Snyder and the Death Metal and Joker War timelines. And he's going to go back to toying around with the changes and the splits and the various multiverse, distortions that Dr. Manhattan created. And somehow there is a convergence of some kind of Jokers that end up creating this singular event or this moment or a particular conflict that creates the story. That makes a lot more sense of how you could get these very different Jokers from very different timelines together and tell one specific story before then it gets corrected, whether it be by Dr. Manhattan or Batman figures some way to, you know, put everything back or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just super excited to read issue 1, and then obviously talk about it on the show. That's going to be a doozy too, because that first issue I think was like 48 pages or something like that. So that's going to be a girthy, and I imagine it's going to explain a lot. So that's going to be interesting trying to tackle that into like a 10-15 minute episode.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No kidding. Trying to break that thing down.
For sure.
We're going to have to sit down and really brainstorm of how we can outline it.
Dude, yeah, because people have been, again, this has been a highly anticipated book for quite a while. So, I'm curious to see what sales and stuff are going to be on this as well. I know I want all the covers. There's so many covers, but I need them. I need them.
Yeah, for real.
But
well, it does feel like this book has been coming out for like 10 years.
For sure. Kind of like Doomsday Clock.
But no matter how it plays out, I mean, the main point is that this is everything that we're saying is so indicative of just how much DC has going on simultaneously.
Which brings us to our next point. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Michael Keaton in talks to reprise his role as an old Bruce Wayne in the DCEU.
Yes.
Now this
has been around for a while now, yeah. But.
Yeah. This has been a while, but this is the first time we get to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually when the CW did their Crisis, right? When they did their Infinite Crisis.
Yep.
You remember I was like, oh my God, they finally listened. Someone was watching the show or listening to the podcast because I've been talking about this for years where like everything counts. Just go in the multiverse, everything counts. We even saw a picture of Michael Keaton in that show saying that Bruce Wayne is getting married to Selena Kyle, which is Catwoman. So, Keaton was actually in part of that crossover in a small way. But now they're saying he's going to make his way to, his way back as Batman to the big screen as an older Bruce Wayne. Some people are saying that he's going to be almost like the Nick Fury of the DC EU, which would be very interesting. All I know is I want this to happen. He's apparently, if this deal goes through, he'll be appearing in the Flash movie, which as of now is Flashpoint. And if this happens, this will get every comic book, not just DC fan, this will get every comic book fan in that seat, because this would be one of the biggest things to happen for comic book movies in a long time. I mean, Michael Keaton, like 89, this was way before the MCU, way before the Raimi films, way before X-Men, way before Blade, way before all this stuff. Like him and like Christopher Reeves, in a sense, are like the godfathers of the superhero films, right? Where Christopher Reeves was Superman and then Keaton was Batman, and this was like. And he was Batman too. He was the Batman who brought back like the Dark Knight.
Yep.
Because back then everyone was still watching in syndication Adam West as like that campy Batman. But when we got the '89 Batman, it was like, oh, the Dark Knight is back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I am all for this. There's rumors that the DC fandom is going to announce a Batman Beyond movie, which would make sense because maybe the introduction of Keaton is to set that up. And if we get a Batman Beyond movie, Terry McGinnis live action, I would be that's one of my end all be alls. That was a dream. That was like a bucket list live action movie for me. So
he's not exaggerating on that. I will add, he's not exaggerating on that point. This is something that he has said to me privately at nauseam. Like almost a day does not go by where he doesn't randomly say, "Could you imagine if Michael Keaton came back as Batman,
dude?" And then again, and to have him old man Bruce Wayne, training a Terry McGinnis. Yeah. Oh my god, dude. And I'm not the only one. There's so many people who would be like, "Oh my God, this is everything. Like this is it."
Yeah, honestly, I would, and a lot of people are going to take this as an exaggeration and maybe roll their eyes at this statement, but I honestly see if they are able to pull that off, but not just have him come back and do a cameo, but have him come back and play a Nick Fury type of a role, where he's just this looming mentoring figure who kind of, guides the hand of the heroes.
Right.
In a way, almost in this leadership role as old man Bruce Wayne. If they're able to bring him back and it works and really bring it together, this is going to be kind of like a Captain America, getting to finally wield Mjolnir type of a moment, I think.
Oh yeah.
As far as comic book movies go.
Yo, yeah. See, I can't imagine being there opening night and the first time he pops up on screen ever. Yeah. I mean, because again, he's like Batman, 89 Batman. Like this is the first live action blockbuster Batman. And all of us, a lot of people were in their teens, or even me. I was like, 4 when this came out. But I grew up with it because this was always on TV. Like we had the VHS tapes, and Batman Returns is actually that one I was actually old enough to see in theaters and stuff like that. But obviously I watched the original '89 one. So this is my Batman. Right. I say it all the time. Like that's the Tim Burton Batman, both the '89 and Batman Returns, along with Batman the Animated Series. That's what got me into comic books, because without the Tim Burton Batman films, there wouldn't have been Batman the Animated Series. That's what led that into existence. So this is my Batman, and to see him reprise his role as an older Bruce Wayne, and they say that's the other thing, Tim. They're saying he will be wearing a bat suit. They say we will see him in a bat. Which bat suit? We don't know if it'll be the original one. It could be a modified, newer one. But either way, seeing Keaton in a cape and cowl once again will probably bring a tear to my eye.
Yeah, man. Because I'm right there with you. When that movie came out, I was only 10 years old. And so that's my Batman. Like that is the Batman I grew up with. And Michael Keaton Batman was, he was the Batman action figures I played with as a kid. I had the freaking Batwing. I had the Batmobile. This was Batman for me. So, and in my generation, your generation, the nostalgia button that they are going to be pounding on if that happens is going to be massive. And you know how big of a play nostalgia is now for our generations and drawing us to any kind of content, really, especially if it's done well. They do start to, and because I've already said this to you as well, but they do start to lose me a little bit if they're like, hey, he's going to still be Batman and he's going to be wearing a bat-suit. It all depends on how they do it. And I think that is part of the thing that is also going to be dependent on whether or not Michael Keaton comes back. And I this has been my thing, is it's a lot of it's going to depend on what are they asking him to do. Like because he's very aware of where he's at in terms of his career. He's older now. He knows there's some things that he just shouldn't be doing. He's actually vocalized that in public.
If they do like the first episode of the Batman Beyond pilot, where you see an older Bruce Wayne in a Batman Beyond suit realizing, he's getting heart problems, so he's forced to use a gun, which he's sworn off, and that forces him into retirement. And then he has, he stumbles upon this kid who finds his way into the Batcave and then takes the bat suit. Dude, that is it. It is all there.
That'll be it.
Bruce Timm and all the people responsible for the DC animated universe already laid it out. Just do it. Do it. Just
follow that recipe. And that's why I say it just depends. You could lose me because you have to do it right, or it's going to be cheesy. It's just going to be off. So, but you're exactly right. If they follow that recipe and that's what it ends up being, oh my God.
Or what if it's even like the Kingdom Come Batman, where he's still in like that mechanized batsuit and he's really old and he's in an exoskeleton. Yeah. So like he only dons it like that one time to come out of retirement. You know what I mean? Just anything like that.
Or like even a hodgepodge of those two things. Would be, I think, not just okay, would be amazing. Because if you have him, realize like, kind of like Danny Glover and Lethal Weapon, I'm too old for this. If he realizes like at the beginning that that's where he's at, and then maybe toward the end, there's a moment of desperation where they need him and he puts on a mech suit and you get both.
You have to have the 89 Batmobile in there. You have to, right?
Listen, if you don't do that, what a freaking missed opportunity.
Like, I don't care if they armored it up a little bit or making, it's older, so it's had like some patchwork done, but you see the bare bones of it is there. Like that is clearly the 89 Batmobile, and he's just modified it a little bit to keep up with it over the years. Man, or then even just keep going off of that. Like at this point, if you're going to go into the multiverse and do all this stuff, you could throw Easter eggs all over that Batcave.
Everywhere.
Have the 89 Batsuit in there. Have like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman suit in there. Like maybe the Penguin's, Danny DeVito's Penguin like umbrella in there. Just all Jack Nicholson's like teeth, his chattering teeth he had from the first movie and stuff. Just put all of that stuff in there.
Or you could have, what if you had like the leftover pieces of the broken Batwing that crashed?
Oh yeah.
Or they just had the remains of it inside the bat cave and he kept it.
Or the long-barreled gun that Nicholson uses, the Joker uses at the end. That always stood out to me as a kid. I'm like, that is a very long barrel for a handgun. And he like pulled it out of his pants. It's like, how did you walk?
Is that a gun in your pocket, or you just happened to see me?
But yeah, I think this will break the comic book community if this becomes official and they announce it at DC Fandom.
It goes into the category of where there's smoke, there's fire for me. There's so much smoke around this thing. I can't imagine that not being the case at this point, about this not being one of the big where he comes out as old man Bruce Wayne. Oh my God. Just thinking about it is like getting me so stoked. I hope that not only do they do it, I hope that they do it really, really well, because the opportunity here to use this combined with a Flashpoint storyline, dude, could create, first of all, you could use it to bring everything together. And going back to what we talked about regarding the Snyder Cut and what it could mean, what are the possibilities for the Snyder Cut? for the future of the DC universe and how they could merge what they're doing now with things like the Batman and continuing Snyder's universe, DC universe on HBO Max, and maybe create a multiverse with Darkseid at the center. Dude, that would be look, people might get annoyed and say, "Oh, that's too much like what Marvel did." I don't care. If you make Darkseid the centric big bad, and you have two multiverses that are colliding because the way that Darkseid is manipulating the mother boxes, and you have Michael Keaton Batman acting as like a Nick Fury type, guiding the heroes on both ends through this thing to defeat Darkseid. Come on. Who doesn't want to freaking see that?
I don't know. I that would be amazing. But you just reminded me, kind of talking about Darkseid in the Snyderverse. Did you hear that recently he went on social media to pretty much say we're gonna get a tease or a trailer before DC Fandom, before August?
Who said that?
Snyder.
No, I didn't see that.
He basically he's on Vero and Twitter all the time, responding to people's questions about his Snyderverse and stuff like that. He confirmed that his original design for Steppenwolf is going to be in his cut, because apparently the design we saw was not his at all. They completely changed it. So
that's interesting.
It's going to go back to pretty much the Steppenwolf we saw in BVS briefly.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure. And then he said we're gonna get some sort of tease. He didn't say what. He didn't say a teaser trailer. We're getting some sort of tease, apparently, before August in the DC Fandom event. What form is that gonna take? We don't know. But I mean, it's not shocking considering we did just get that 20-second little clip of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman looking at old paintings of Darkseid. So maybe something along those lines that's a little more, gives us a little more. We're like, oh my God, there he is, close up, and not, you know what I mean? So
I wonder if it will be almost like a tease leading people to the DC Fandom event, because that would make a lot of sense of them trying to get, just because they're looking to get as many draws to the Fandom event as possible. And that's a big one. So I'm wondering if it'll be a tease. It'll be like, hey, come to the Fandom event to see the remainder, the rest of it.
Yeah. He also confirmed, someone asked him if Warner Brothers and all those execs, had any say in his cut. And he said, nope, this is 100% everything he wants to do, which is really, really crazy, because what he basically said was, whatever I guess their agreement was, whatever I want this movie to be is what it's going to be. You have no say. I will do it, but it has to be my Snyder cut 100% through and through. You cannot make any changes that I don't want to make. Exactly. That's insane. That's kind of awesome, because no, for better or for worse, whether it's going to be amazing or horrible or just okay, you cannot doubt. No fan can ever say now this is not his vision, because whatever we get, now we know definitively
this is Snyder's cut.
This is Snyder's cut. And if it sucks, that means it just sucks. If it's good, that means they screwed him over and they should have listened to him. But but we're gonna find out either way.
But I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise for anyone. It would only make sense. It would actually be shocking if you could get him to come out and do anything other than that. Because what's the point then?
It's just cool to see. It's just cool to see confirmation, because there's so much politics and stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
For sure.
That these days, that it's just nice to get that confirmation, concrete, written out on on text online, that from the director himself, be like, nope, this is mine, and I wouldn't have done it if otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And that is the most exciting part about the entire thing, is that what that means and confirms is what we've been told all along, is that this is going to be a completely different film.
You know what he said?
To toe.
Someone asked him about the Superman Flash race at the very, very end. He's like, was it different or blah blah? And he's like, what race?
No.
So that wasn't even in his cut. Yeah, that wasn't even in his cut. Not at all. That was a completely new idea. Also, the monologue that Lois is giving over Superman and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? Yeah. Apparently, they took a quote from that. They're like, I've never heard that line before. So that also wasn't in his movie. So the more that he's answering, more it's coming out. We already know this, but it just keeps solidifying the fact that, wow, they added and changed so much. This really is going to be like a completely different movie, which is
Yeah.
never, it's so weird to think that we're getting the same movie again, but it's going to be completely different.
But totally different. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And we've said it several times already, but it really is amazing. Like you've never seen a film that the exact same movie twice.
Leave it to
totally different.
Leave it to comic fans to make it happen.
I'm telling you, man, just really, really, really fascinating. To that, and to see, and again, this for me, this really is what it boils down to for me in the end. Is what is this going to lead to? Is this going to be something that is good enough and creates enough buzz and generates enough excitement from the fan base to where HBO and Warner Brothers goes, yeah, let's go ahead and keep this party going. You know what I'm saying? Like,
maybe
you're looking at what they're doing with HBO Max, which, by the way, I'm going to get into in here in just a second because they got under my skin this past week. But
was it them pulling down all the Batman movies? Is that what got you?
Yes, but not just that. It's what the freak are they doing? I'm going to say this in a second. Let me finish my point. But it's that, for them, this is all about drawing as many new subscribers as they can. Everything is about generating as much revenue so they can be as relevant and generate as much competition with the big dogs like Netflix and Disney Plus as possible. And they've got a great, great, great lineup. I mean, you could argue that they're right there with Disney Plus in certain ways. In terms of content that they have access to through Warner Brothers. So if this is good enough and it generates enough of excitement and buzz and curiosity as to where else it could go amongst fans and audiences just generally, what could this lead to for the DC EU, for DC cinematic film television side in general? And that, for me, is the most exciting part, because if that meant that we could get something like what we were just talking about with, the Snyderverse coming into collision with this other, maybe like, Earth 616, universe that they're creating with the Batman and so on, and Michael Keaton is kind of a Nick Fury. If it creates any form of an opportunity for that, I mean, I am all freaking in. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I'm all down for all of this. I just can't wait for it to happen. But now you kind of got me talking about, because I went on Twitter about a week or two ago complaining about what we were just talking about. Like, so I found out, a little bit ago, like HBO Max has been out for like what, a month and a half maybe at this point?
A little over a month.
Okay. So they originally debuted it with, they have like their categories, right? So there's a DC category, there's a Looney Tunes category, yada, yada, yada. But on the DC side, obviously, that's the one I was most interested in, being the big comic book fan I am. And I was sad to see that their library wasn't nearly as filled out as it should have been, right?
No way.
They had like the Christopher Reeves movies, I believe, at launch. They had the Batman movies, like the 89 Batman through Batman and Robin and stuff. But like there was so much missing, especially on the animated side. So much cartoons, animated movies, like just all this stuff. And then, like, I think I don't know if this is what you're mad about. This is what I'm mad about. And then just over a month in, they're like, yeah, we're going to take down all the Batman movies.
Exactly.
And some other stuff. And we're just going to, we'll replace it with the Ultimate Edition of BVS. That's it. Bye.
Can anyone freaking explain this to me?
Dude, I don't know.
You own the doggone properties. You own them.
I don't know, man.
Can someone explain to me why Warner Brothers and DC now has two separate streaming platforms, HBO Max and DC Universe, and you don't have any Batman films available outside of an Ultimate Edition of BVS? And they have the Justice League up, but I'm not going to count that. Can someone explain to me why we have no Tim Burton Batman films? Why we have no other Batman older films? Why there's no Nolan Batman films?
Tim, they were up for a month. What are you talking about? There was 4 weeks.
I cannot. And on top of that, I was just reading that they're talking about taking down other DC films here very shortly.
But
even more of them are going to come off.
the thing that makes no sense to me is, yeah, they said more are going to come off, but they're basically rotating them out, because they said the Tim Burton Batman films and the Schumacher Batman films will eventually be put back on. They said actually by the end of what I read, at least, said they'll be back on by the end of the year, come like, I guess, November-ish. But it's like, why take them down? You think it's like legal rights that they have, or someone owns it or something? Like, what is it? I was under the impression that Warner Brothers never sold their rights to anyone. That's me.
Well, it's not about like selling rights. It's about licensing. So I'm sure it has something to do with some kind of licensing issue somewhere where they licensed it out to other platforms at various times. However, my thing is this. You're going to set up two huge platforms, right? DC Universe had some of these films. It's never had all of the Nolan films. Nope. By the way, it's had, I think, one or two at a time, and then they're only up there for a very limited amount of time. They've had the Burton films up there for limited periods of time, and then they come off. But you can't go on HBO Max or the DC Universe right now. Neither. Like yesterday, I'm on HBO Max, and I go over there, and I'm looking for a Batman movie. Nothing other than BVS, and I don't account that. That's more the Snyderverse. Okay, I'm looking for a Batman movie. Nothing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure it's on DC Universe then, because it's got to be on one of the two, right? No, nothing. They've got some of the animated films on there, but it's like, how is it that you have two platforms and you've got, and it's not just Batman, mind you. I was watching, my youngest son just got done watching the Hobbit film, the Hobbit trilogy. He read the book. That's a tradition in our house. I think I've mentioned this in the past. It's a tradition in our house where my kids, they read the book, they write a report on the book, and then we watch the trilogy. And that's their kind of introduction into that world. And my youngest son, he finished up everything, and we were watching the Hobbit trilogy. And we had watched the first two on HBO Max. And last night we went to watch the third one, the Battle of the Five Armies. And we go on there and we go to pull it up. Gone. All three of the Hobbit films are gone. Could someone explain? What the freak is going on over there? So I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, maybe this is a licensing thing where it's on another platform. I check Prime. I check Netflix. I'm checking all these other platforms. Nowhere. You have to buy it. So I'm like, what is happening? Why are they own this property?
You want to know what else is weird? Guess what just got added to Netflix like a week or so ago? Recently. Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Dude.
So like they have two streaming platforms, but somehow Batman Mask of the Phantasm is going up on Netflix.
I can understand if you already had licensing agreements and arrangements in place.
Sure.
Where, these properties were supposed to go up on these other platforms at this particular time, and you had that in place prior to all of this, fine. I get that. Business is business. You have contracts. It is what it is, and they just have to expire. Disney Plus is no different. They've been dealing with the same thing with their agreement that they had with Netflix, right? And you're seeing like even certain things. Like I just saw, what was the Disney show? Underdog. Remember that old live action remake of Underdog? I saw that's on HBO Max, right? So, they all have similar issues, but I just can't understand some of your biggest franchises, some of your biggest draws to your platform. You have two streaming platforms. Two. DC Universe has been up for what, 2 years?
Around there, roughly. Maybe a little more.
2 years. Now you've got HBO Max. You've known that HBO Max was coming. You had HBO Go before. So it's not like they didn't have streaming platforms. They've had streaming platforms for quite a while. How is it that we're now a couple of years into you having a DC-centric platform and the HBO Go platform, which is the perfect place for Warner Brothers to have exclusive content, and we still don't have consistent content even a month after you just launched this brand new huge platform? We still don't have almost any Batman films. We have this in and out situation going with major films like The Hobbit. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I hope they get this cleared up because it's kind of frustrating.
No, it's extremely, extremely frustrating. I mean, again, it's kind of funny. Like, again, they might have licensing issues and stuff like that, but it's weird that you have HBO Max and the DC Universe app, and Batman Mask of the Phantasm isn't on either of them, but it's on Netflix. Yeah. Now, the crazy thing is, which is weird, is Batman Mask of the Phantasm was on the DC Universe app for the longest time, so something expired somehow where they had to take it off, and now it's on Netflix. So I don't know what they got working behind the scenes, but it is really frustrating that, that if they're going to come out with a DC app or HBO that is like essentially Warner Brothers, you expect them to have most, if not all, of those properties that they own. Like, you know what I mean? You can't have a
Exactly.
DC section and not have some of your biggest DC movies. You know what I mean? You don't have, like you said, the Batman movies, the Tim Burton ones, the Schumacher. I don't even know if HBO Max has. Do they have the Nolan ones? Do you know? I don't even know anymore.
No.
See,
no,
okay, they don't have the Nolan ones.
Nothing.
And the same things with the DC Universe app is really weird too. Like, you go on there, like, and they're supposed to have all these movies and animated movies, and they're like, slowly but surely, it's actually their library is becoming less and less. Like, I remember with their DC animated movies, their rule was, like, I think it was 30 days after it hits Blu-ray, we'll put it up on the DC Universe app. And I think Superman Red Son has still yet to be put up on the DC Universe app, which is crazy because that movie has been out for months.
It's on one of the two. I just saw yesterday. It's either on HBO Max or DC Universe. I did see that.
Oh, they did put it on? Okay, so
But
I
don't remember which one now.
Actually, yes, I just checked on my phone. Superman Red Son is on the DC Universe app, but it was supposed to be a quicker turnaround. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it is just kind of depressing where you pay like all this money, you know, because all these $7-10 add up. So you're paying all these money for streaming services, and then when you go to, like, surely they'll have Batman Returns on there. Surely they'll have The Hobbit, one of their biggest franchises, and it's not on there.
Dude, I'm telling you.
So, like, it's really annoying. I know up until recently, like, before HBO Max, HBO Now didn't have the Harry Potter films. And I was like, what? Because it's still Warner Brothers. It's on HBO Max now. But, like, going about what we're talking about, they're probably going to pull it off next week.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, well, now it makes me wonder, okay, are the Harry Potters going to come down at some point? Because, look, this is the whole point of having the HBO Max or a DC Universe or a Disney Plus, is that those things, this is the draw, is they're supposed to be the home of these particular pieces of content, right? Like all the Warner Brothers stuff, the DC stuff. It's supposed to be the home, the exclusive home. Now that means that we might also see it on other platforms from time to time, but we can count on the fact that it's always going to be available on, you know, Warner Brothers content, the big stuff especially, is always going to be available on HBO Max. Disney's big content is always going to be available on Disney Plus. That's the whole concept that us as consumers are going by. And for that not to be the case is very frustrating because we're spending the same dollar amount on it every month, but we're so far. And again, we're only a little over a month in. But we're not seeing a lot of consistency, and I hope they get that straightened out.
All I'm saying is I think I think Disney Plus did a fantastic job with the rollout of their streaming service, and they're continuing to do so where, like, once a contract is up with Netflix, who has, you know, one of their Marvel movies, it instantly then reverts back to Disney Plus and goes to Disney. So I feel like that's what they all should be doing. It's like, again, I don't know what licensing issues or logistics are behind the scenes, but I feel like whenever, you know, a contract is up with Hulu or any of these other streaming platforms or what have you, it needs to permanently live on the HBO Max site now, since that's Warner Brothers, like, gung-ho street or big streaming service now. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Or at least adopt Disney's transparency and how when it's not ready to go up yet, they have a page that's up and it says when it will be available.
Right. Now, we need to transition into this other bit of news because this is pretty big news. Now,
huge.
Everyone knows that I'm not a big video game fan. I'm not at all. There's a handful of video games I play, but this is massive news nonetheless, you know, being a big video game fan.
No matter what.
Yeah. And that is the announcement of Amazon Prime doing a Fallout series. How crazy is that?
Crazy town. And not only are they doing a Fallout series, but it is being written, produced by the Westworld team from HBO, Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy.
Insane.
And everybody knows, of course, Jonathan Nolan as, you know, Christopher Nolan's brother who co-wrote the Batman films series with him.
Yeah. Yep. I'm very, very excited. Again, like, I haven't even played much of the game, but, you know, I've seen enough clips and have friends played it and stuff that I'll totally watch a TV series. If anything, if this TV series is good, it'll probably get me to play the games.
Well, yeah. I mean, nonetheless, again, even if you're not a big gamer, everybody knows what Fallout is. You know, if you're in the world of geekdom at all, you know what Fallout is. You know, it's just got a really great dystopian future storyline. My brother
cool.
Josh, is a massive Fallout fan. So
Yeah.
when I told him about this the other day, he about wet himself. But it's huge news, and the team that they've got together, and the fact that this is going to be on Amazon Prime, this is probably going to be a really, really quality series.
Can we just say how Amazon Prime is like amassing some properties right now? We already know they're doing Lord of the Rings. That's going to get a series. Now we got Fallout. God knows what else they're going to get at this rate. I feel like they need one more big one to have like a trinity of like, come here for these three. Yeah, you know what I mean?
And it's going to happen. They have such deep pockets. You could argue they have the deepest pockets out of all of the platforms.
Well, their owner is Jeff Bezos, like the richest freaking dude out there. Guy could buy a country if he wants to.
No joke. He probably does. He already probably has, and we don't even know it. But yeah, they've got the deepest pockets, and so it's only a matter of time before they land the next big one. And they're going to be right there competing with Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO Max and Apple Plus. Although I will say, I don't feel like Apple Plus, while they're putting out some content, I feel like they're just kind of they're not focused on being super competitive with the others. They're not doing what the other streaming platforms are doing. They're just kind of trying to, I feel like they're trying to have like their own niche content where it's just like, okay, this is the only place you can get this. These are these originals, and that's it.
For sure. I know I don't have Apple Plus right now. There's just too many streaming platforms. Although I guess I missed it for a second. They were giving it away for free during quarantine or something like that. This is what I hear.
That's true.
And I missed the sign up, so that's a bummer. But
I did get it. I got it because I purchased a new phone.
So what you're saying,
I got a year of Apple Plus with the purchase of the new phone.
Oh, that's pretty dope. So are they doing? Is that like a promotion, or are they doing that for like ever right now?
It was through AT&T, so I'm not sure if that's something they're doing consistently or if it was just at the time.
All right, that makes sense. Well, either way, there's a lot of streaming platforms out there right now, so they're gonna have they're gonna have to intrigue me a little more because I do want to see that Chris Evans series that's on there though. That does look really good. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do a month free trial, watch it, and then that's it.
Yeah, I have it, and I don't think I've watched a single thing on there.
Well,
nothing has really
tell you what,
my attention.
You watch something and then you let me know if it's worth worth getting it.
Okay, solid.
But with all that, I think that's all the big news topics we have for today.
Yeah, we didn't even get to Marvel Empire.
We didn't, but we'll get to that next time because that's actually going to be a nice little girthy conversation on its own.
The saving grace is where we have an episode coming up on the 2-0 issues. So we'll talk about that then, and then we'll follow up after we put that episode out.
For sure. But with that said, we'll see you guys next time when we talk about all things comics.